Hello and welcome to the Car Nerd Talks, where today we're going to be talking about one of the most robust and reliable trucks that you could buy in the 1980s. And I am, of course, talking about the 1973 to 1991 Chevrolet Suburban. You can see behind me, these things never break down. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's jump straight into it. Hey everyone, don't worry, we're going to be jumping back over to the truck in a minute for a look around and a drive. Just wanted to give a quick backstory on the Chevrolet Suburban, because that's what this channel is about, history of cars. And also I want to apologize because after this segment, most of the audio is fine in the clips, but I didn't actually have a mic with me that day, so I was relying on the camera mic itself. So there's a couple of times in that video that you're about to see where the mic quality might not be great. If you just want to look at the truck, feel free to turn off, and I've dubbed over the ones where I possibly could, so for the most part it's fine, but fair warning. Now on to the quick history of the Suburban. The Chevrolet Suburban was first introduced in 1935 after being developed and unveiled in 1934. Basically what this was supposed to be was a suburban carryall. That's what it was actually called. The first vehicle was the Chevrolet Suburban carryall. And the reason for this was basically people still wanted a big station wagon, but something built a little bit more for purpose. And for the first 40 years of its life, essentially, this was a two-door car with 6 people seating, so 2 benches and plenty of space in the back. With the 6th generation, the one prior to the one we're looking at today, they introduced a 3rd door on the passenger side to make it easier to get in and out of. However, with this 7th generation, it was the first one to have 2 doors on both sides, which is pretty cool. The Suburban is the oldest running marque in history. So it's ran from 1935 and still runs now without a break. So this is the first and last ever one that will have run from 35 till today. Every other marque that was around in that time has either been killed off or taken a large break. So the Chevrolet Suburban has the name of the longest running marque. And actually in 1978, all the other brands that were using the Suburban name stopped using it. Around 1973, they stopped using it actually, but that's when GM managed to get a patent on the name Suburban. Before that, there was the Plymouth Suburban and a few other different Suburban trucks. But Chevrolet were the last ones with it, along with GM. So there was actually a GMC, as you probably know if you're a Suburban fan and watching this. There was a Chevrolet Suburban and a GMC Suburban, both of which were running along the same time as this truck. However, in 2000, GMC decided to change that out and basically go ahead with their own branding and keep the Chevrolet Suburban as the main Suburban. So now that's why you have the GMC Yukon XL, and the Yukon is essentially the same as the Tahoe, which are the smaller versions of these trucks. So with all that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe, of course, and let's jump back over and have another look at that truck. Thank you so much for watching. In terms of looks, the new Chevrolet Suburban, this 1991 7th generation, this was at the end of the 1991 versions, but of course it still had the same looks essentially as when it was introduced in 1973. And if you've seen my Chevrolet version, which you can watch at the link above, my Chevrolet pickup, it's essentially the same design. And at the front, the only difference is this particular one was a higher end model, so it had the dual lights of the Cheyenne. It also had some different features around the body because it's a Suburban. It's essentially a double cab, long wheelbase Chevy pickup truck of the era, but with a roof and some nice chairs. The engine in this particular truck we're looking at is the 350 cubic inch 5.7 litre V8. The reason for that is that the other 5 litre V8 and the other V8s in general were gone by this time, but this one did produce 170 horsepower if I'm not mistaken. and has a nice sound to it. Weirdly enough, this is the 1991 version, and by 1987 all engines were supposed to be replaced by electric fuel injection, but this one still has the dual carbs, which kind of is peculiar to me. So when we get inside, actually the cluster on this is exactly the same as my Chevrolet truck was. They are essentially the same car, just with seats and space in the back. Now it is quite lengthy, and I think probably quite big compared to a standard cab. It was probably like the double cab plus the back. You've got obviously your American style shifter, which is quite strange for us Irish people. We've never seen these. We always just had the normal shifters. These were not a thing. Automatics in America are huge, but in Ireland and Europe they weren't as big, as you may or may not know. Now you've got your old, this was the late 80s, early 90s, so you've got your just FM radio here. There's a cassette player as well, which is quite cool. Air conditioning all round. Now the air conditioning isn't great, it's like an asthmatic coughing on you, but it's still better than nothing. And of course, we've got this beautiful kind of brown dash, which is worn away massively with the amount of wear and tear. Interestingly, up here, you've got these visors, and then you've got these slide out things to kind of cover them up, so if you want more protection. And this can comfortably seat 3 people at the front, but of course you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want your cup holders here. It's more important. All electric windows, of course, in chrome, very stylish at the time, and the lock button here just for the driver's side. So that's what that's for. You've also got these pull handles, which are quite interesting. I like those. That's quite cool. So yeah, let's jump into, more importantly, the back seat. Plenty of space in the back here as well. This is quite a big setup. Not huge amounts of leg room, but I imagine you can probably move these back and forth. One thing I do like is at the front it's got a big ashtray, as I'll show you. You'll see overlaid now in editing, because that's how incredible this channel is. We can edit things, but that's a huge ashtray up front. You also have an ashtray here for each passenger. So you'll see here on the side there's an ashtray, there's another one on the other side, and then when I show you in the back in a minute, because there's a third row, this had the optional third row seating, so this car could actually comfortably seat 9, and that would give you enough space to have 9 people, and 7 of them had their own ashtrays, which is pretty impressive. You've got dome lighting up here, doesn't work. You've got grab handle up here, doesn't work, and just plenty and plenty of room. It's absolutely fantastic. This car also had the high-end option of rear heating for that optional back seat that I was talking about. So not only could you comfortably seat 9, you also have the option of the air conditioning and heating at the back. Pretty incredible for a car like this. Yeah, it's really roomy, and I'm sure at the time this was like a high-end luxury vehicle, and yeah, you definitely would have no problem. Now what I'm wondering is, getting in the back here is just a simple pull handle type thing, and you pull that forward and in you get. Pretty cool. This is so weird to drive. See, in Ireland what you have to understand is we don't have these sticks that, you know, kind of shift down that you guys have in America and whatnot. So this is quite a strange experience for us, and the brakes work, so that's good. But it's such a weird experience driving one of these. And also, as I said before, the windows work really strange. So it's an interesting car because you have all of these features, like the stick for an Irish person to drive, because we just don't have those in Ireland. But that being said, the ride is incredibly comfortable. Like this is proper old bench seat. Now I'm a minor 5.6 feet, so obviously for me this is you know, a bit big. I'd have to move the seats and everything forward, but given it's not my car and I'm just borrowing it for an hour or so, I didn't want to do all of that. So I'm just sitting in this relaxed kind of low rider position driving around Mexico. But it doesn't seem to want to drive anymore, which is quite strange. There's like no power. I've got no gas at all now, which is interesting. I've just lost power completely. Oh shit. So we've just completely lost power after talking about how robust these things are. So while I'm sitting here, and you can probably see this statue thing, let's just it's not starting at all. This is just fantastic.
So there you have it. That's what driving a Suburban is like. Comfortable until it breaks down. So I'm not going to bother starting this up again. Steering is nice and light. I can tell you about that while I'm sitting here trying to get it started again. We're back driving again. It's great. All it took was getting another truck to come and you know, put it into drive. Sounds great though. It sounds fantastic. Yeah, I now got a crew. You have to kind of do that to get it going, so the weird thing is it's got a good little bit of power, but I can't jam it now because I've got a film crew in front of me, so we're not really going to be able to find out how fast this thing goes. It sounds fantastic though. This is the 5.7 litre as I mentioned before, which was only introduced in the 88 on models, so it sounds real nice. Brakes, I'm not going to lie, don't give me a lot of confidence, and there's a lot of body roll, like a lot, so I wouldn't want to floor it anyway. The steering is fantastic. It does sound good though when you give it the beans. It sounds really, really nice. Unfortunately, this is quite a big car, so obviously you're not going to want to kind of, you know, give it too much of a stick. So, but yeah, really nice drive otherwise. Sorry the review was really bad, but the inevitable breakdowns just caused a bit of a problem on that. So sorry the driving review wasn't great, but sure, here we are, back in now. It's got quite a large turning circle. Which for me, I've driven, like, you know, I had the old 87 version of this, but that was a pickup and you had a lot more visibility. I know this has huge windows, but it still feels quite awkward to drive. I imagine this would take a lot of getting used to for soccer moms and what have you back in the day. So I'm going to ease this in carefully and hope to God I don't hit that Passat on the other side, because I don't have a lot of visibility here. Yeah, we're good, we got this. Just a little Irish fella driving a big truck. That is, I'm not going to lie, absolutely ridiculous. And there we are, there you have it. That is the Chevrolet Suburban. So that is the enormous Chevrolet Suburban from 1991, well, from 1973 to 1981, and of course I would have jumped in and out to tell you a little bit about the history, but thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.